Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the international webinar series on holistic health, well-being, and sustainable development 2022-2023, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 75 years of independence. United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 as part of awareness and campaigns in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Arts, Sciences and Wellbeing. Before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's session. Today, we will have the presentation by Dr. Jyoti Makkar. Then we will move on to today's commemorations. Today we have a few commemorations, like very important commemoration, World Day of Fight Against Sexual Exploitation, and also World Obesity Day, and other commemorations. We will take it up after the session presentation. So we invite Dr. Jyoti Makkar. She is a dentist and also a psychologist from New Delhi. We invite you for your presentation. You can unmute yourself. You can start your video.
Jai Shri Krishna and very good evening to all the participants. Prior to commencing my session, I would like to offer thanks to Almighty Father God who granted me this opportunity. I'd like to thank to the mediators through whom the Almighty granted me this opportunity, and I'd also like to express my gratitude to the wonderful participants. So my topic of discussion today is insight therapy. Insight therapy is a psychotherapy which is most often used in psychiatric treatment purposes. What is insight therapy? Insight therapy is basically, it's an umbrella term that is used for, it's an umbrella term that is used for a variety of therapies, like for cognitive behavior therapy and for cognitive behavior and neuro-linguistic programming. And there are various therapies included in it. Humanistic and existential approach, and client-centered therapy, Rogerian psychotherapy, and then there is this Adlerian approach, Adlerian psychology. There are various therapies included in it. Now, all these therapies which are included under this umbrella term, they have a common concept, and they have a common concept. And what is this common concept? The common concept is that the unresolved inner conflicts, how they affect unresolved inner conflicts which are embedded in our unconscious and which are not in our conscious awareness, how they affect our behavior. And it also has in this umbrella term, there is also psychoanalytic and psychodynamic therapy included. So all these therapies have this common concept. Now, basically, this insight-oriented therapy, it helps us to explore that how our past experiences, past emotions, it brings it on, the therapist brings it into the insight of the patient. The therapist helps the patient client recognize that how the past emotions, thoughts, feelings, and actions, they influence the current behavior of a person, the current behavior which is irrational and inappropriate. So once the client is able to identify that how the past context and event is coming into the present context and event, then the client gains insight and there is a change in behavior of the client. So basically, I will give an example. Before that, I will tell where therapy is used. So all these therapies, they are used in various disorders, like they're used in anxiety disorders. They may be used for depression. They may be used for post-traumatic stress disorder. They may be used for substance abuse. They may be used for sexual difficulties. They may be used for familial relationship problems, relationship issues. They may be used for various psychosis and various other self-esteem problems, various issues like self-esteem problems. So now this what happens is all these cases, these therapies are used. I will give an example now. Suppose there is a person, when he was 12 years old, he was crossing the street and a lorry came at a very fast speed. And now what happens? The person managed to survive. There could have been a terrible accident, but the person managed to survive. But now the person is 28 years old. And now that past content was that a person was crossing the street. Past context was the person was crossing the street. Content was that a lorry came with very fast speed. And now this past context and content has come into the present. The person is 28 years old and he feels very scared to cross the street alone. And he has to seek the help of someone to cross the street because he has a fear embedded in him that lorries are very dangerous and they may come at a fast speed and he may lose his life. Now, 28 years old, the person is seeking the help of someone else to cross the road. And he cannot cross it himself alone. So that is inappropriate and irrational behavior for that particular age. And the context is the event which happened 16 years back. And the content was also in the 16 years back. Now it has come into the present. So when an insight therapist, he questions the client, there are three basic questions we question the client. One is there are three main questions. We question many questions. The main purpose of questioning is to help the client recognize that his past is he's associating his present with the past, and to help him come out of the past and function properly in the present moment, to live in the moment. The first question is, what is your deepest fear? In the example I gave just now, the deepest fear was crossing the street. Now the second question is, what is one question if you would like to ask yourself, if you get a chance to ask yourself? Third question is, if you reach your deathbed, what will be one thing you regret for? So what is the purpose of this question? The purpose of this question is to help the client recognize that to live in the moment. Living in the moment is what matters most. Suppose you have climbed 10 steps. You have climbed 10 steps, and on the 10th step, you're regretting that about the mistake you made on the first step. So that is irrational and that is inappropriate. Life is about moving on. You have to move with the flow. Now, about the various various techniques are used in this insight-oriented therapy. And now, what are these various techniques? One technique is free association. In the free association, what happens? The counselor, he tells the client, he allows the client to express himself freely, to express his thoughts freely with no interruption, so that this will help the therapist to recognize the feelings and the thoughts of the client. And second is dream interpretation. Second technique used is dream interpretation. The client is encouraged to discuss his dreams or draw his dreams so that the therapist can find out the meaning of the dream. That what is it that the client is trying to say. The dreams also, they have some interpretation, something in the unconscious, which is the conscious is not aware of. Maybe some past experience. Now the third is symptom interpretation. The symptoms are in the behavior. So the therapist will interpret the behavioral symptoms to analyze that the root cause is in the past, somewhere in the past. And so the client has to be made aware of it. Now there are various other techniques like free association, symptom recognition, and dream analysis. So these are the various techniques used. And now basically the therapies which I discussed, which are included in this insight therapy. One is Gestalt therapy. Now Gestalt therapy basically focuses on the present, and it helps the client to take the responsibility and rather than adopting a blaming attitude. So what happens is there is one concept in one technique in Gestalt therapy which is insight oriented. And what is that technique? Technique is unfinished business. Again, something related to the past, which is come to the present. Now, another which I discussed, cognitive behavior therapy. Cognitive behavior therapy, which is included in insight therapy, again under that umbrella term. Cognitive behavior therapy, cognitive refers to our thoughts. Thoughts create feelings and emotions, and that affect our behavior. Now, in cognitive behavior therapy, the therapist basically what he does, he helps the client identify the irrational thoughts and irrational thoughts, so that when the thoughts are altered, when the client changes the irrational thoughts, the behavior is automatically changed. And the cause is again embedded in the past experiences. They result in the irrationality of thoughts, negative automatic thoughts, and awareness in the present. So past has again come in the present. Now in this neuro-linguistic programming, again thoughts and behaviors are altered there is this humanistic approach and existential approach. They are also again under the umbrella term of insight therapy. Humanistic approach focuses that on the concept that human beings are basically good, and existential approach says there is nothing good or bad. They basically believe in the survival. And then there is this Adlerian approach. It is also again included under the umbrella term. Adlerian concept says that human beings are basically social beings. Now again there is one more therapy in this umbrella term of insight therapy, that is client oriented therapy, client oriented therapies, and Rogerian therapy. Now, in this client-oriented therapy, which is Rogerian therapy, Rogerian psychotherapy, Carl Roger's client-centered therapy. So basically, in this, what happens is that in this, the client initiates the therapy process. It is a non-directive approach. In the non-directive approach, we mean that the client will initiate the treatment therapeutic process by making self change. So the client and the counselor relationship, it depends on the qualities in the counselor, like empathy, active listening, and empathy, active listening. And the counselor should not be judgmental, and he should not give a suggestion. He should not give advice to the client. So all these help in building a rapport. So all these factors are taken into consideration. So the main purpose is that to help the client recognize, and psychoeducation is also one of the technique used in this insight oriented therapy. It's a very powerful technique. Psychoeducation, we have to educate the client. And this insight therapy, basically it can be given in a single it can be given as a individual therapy, or it can be given as a group therapy. So when we give it as a group therapy, or whether we give it as an individual therapy, we help the client to explore the past. The client is encouraged to discuss the past experiences, some childhood experiences, or if the client has had some traumatic experiences in the childhood, that is also encouraged to help the client recognize that the root cause of the client's maladaptive behavior is in the past, to help the client to cut off the association with the past and live in the moment. So that is what is the purpose of this therapy. So with this, I end my topic. Thank you, many folks.
Thank you, Dr. Jyoti Makkar. Participants have any queries, you can use chat box or raise your hand or unmute yourself. If there are no further queries, then we wish you all the success. It was very well presented.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, then okay, we will move on to today's commemorations. Today, we are commemorating World Obesity Day. So we all can work together. We all can work together to ensure happier, healthier, and longer lives for everybody. So let's talk about obesity. Around the world, we have 1.9 billion number of people living with obesity, and estimated $4.32 trillion global economic impact of overweight and obesity by 2035, and 100% increase in childhood obesity is expected to increase by 100% between 2020 and 2035. And it is expected that 1 in 4 of us will be living with obesity by 2035. There are various reasons for this because of sedentary lifestyle and consumption of meat and meat products. And not only that, excessive consumption, consuming more calories than required, and consuming more junk food. And apart from that, there are some genetic disposition through which obesity can also occur. Mostly it is because of our lifestyle habits, because we consume too much of meat and meat products, and we do not work hard basically. There is nothing wrong in consuming, or we don't recommend you to consume meat as such. But whatever you consume, you are the best one to decide which is good for health. But again, when you are consuming, it is you are killing some living being which are equally having as equal as right to live as us. So we are killing them, and we are inflicting pain them, and we are committing cruelty towards them, and we are consuming them. This is a heinous act. In fact, no one likes to do that. If some animal comes and kills us and eat, will we be happy? Similar way, animals will not be also happy. So we have other alternatives. When we have other alternatives, we have other sources of food nutrition, so we can safely move on to other alternatives. Earlier there was no agriculture. In fact, it was very limited, and primitive human beings, homo sapiens, were entirely dependent on food gathering and hunting. At that time, whatever they got, they have consumed it. But now it is not like that. We have a lot of preferences. We have a lot of availability. And nowadays, even meat and meat products are, on the higher side. And it is also not affordable for everyone. But a lot of stigma and a lot of propaganda promotion that is making people dragging into more towards poverty by encouraging such practices like consuming meat and having a feast with meat, which is a huge burden not only to the families but also on the individuals. And adding to that, the social evils in the society like tobacco consumption and also alcohol consumption is adding to feasts and festivities, which encourage such acts, is bringing down them and causing a huge burden, not only economic and financial burden, but also a lot of physiological and psychological problems. And it are like obesity is also one such, along with various other problems like cardiac problems and many more. So the theme for this year, changing perspectives, let's talk about obesity. Obesity is on the rise globally. Thanks to the efforts to address it are challenging due to misconceptions about obesity and the role it plays in a person's health. So let's all help each other to harness the power of conversation and stories this World Obesity Day. Together, we can correct misconceptions surrounding obesity, acknowledge its complexities, and take effective collective action. Because when we all talk, debate, and share, we can shift norms and transform health outcomes for everybody. This isn't going to be easy, but difficult conversations helps us to influence and mobilize policy initiatives to upend misconceptions, to turn words into action. Obesity can be many different things, and there is no single blueprint to addressing it. We all need to understand the complex roots of obesity so that we can take action that works for our countries, our communities, our own bodies. So it may be due to life events, genetic risk, mental health, food, sleep, biology, marketing, healthcare access, stigma, and finally, our own lifestyle. World Obesity Day is a unified day of action that calls for the cohesive cross-sector response to the obesity crisis. It takes place on 4th March and is convened by World Obesity Foundation in collaboration with its global members. Hundreds of individuals, organizations, and alliances contribute to World Obesity Day every year, engaging hundreds of thousands of people across the world. Previous World Obesity Days have encouraged people to recognize the root causes of obesity, increase knowledge of the disease, tackle weight, stigma, foreground the voices of people with lived experiences, and act to improve world understanding, prevention, and treatment of obesity. So this year's campaign theme is changing perspectives. Let's talk about obesity. We want to harness the power of conversation and stories so that together we can correct misconceptions surrounding obesity and take effective collective action. Because when we all talk, debate, and share, we can shift norms and transform health outcomes for everybody. So since 2021, World Obesity has worked with a global advisory group to design, refine, and deliver the World Obesity campaigns and ensure they are globally representative and inclusive. With the collaborative organizations and their valuable inputs into 2023 campaign as advisory group members, CAMIN, Dasman Institute, ESO, EPCPO, Health Consumer Council of WA, Healthy Canadian Coalition, Heart and Stroke Foundation, South Africa, Obesity Action Coalition, Obesity Canada, Obesity Prevention and Control Society of the Guinness Nutrition Society, Obesity Medicine Association, Singapore Association for the Study of Obesity, Stolink, the Obesity Society, and many more. So the mission of this World Obesity Day is to increase awareness, encourage advocacy, improve policies, share experiences. Obesity is a disease. We are raising awareness and improving understanding of its root cause and the actions needed to address them. Changing the way obesity is addressed across the society, we are encouraging people to become advocates, standing up and calling for the changes. Creating a healthy environment that prioritizes obesity as a health issue, we are working to change policy to build the right support system for the future. Stronger together, we are creating platforms to share experiences, inspiring and uniting a global community to work towards common goals. Around 1 billion of us are living with obesity today. Everyone's journey is different, but many people face similar challenges along the way, such as weight stigma, blame, and barriers to support. Attitudes to obesity need to change, and so do the whole society systems, like food and healthcare, that affect people's health. It's time the world started listening to what people living with obesity has to say about the issue. So on this World Obesity Day, let's start a conversation about obesity with someone we know. Why not begin with one of the topics or any topic that may be more appropriate or relevant? Like, let's talk about when individuals are blamed for their obesity. Individuals are not to be blamed for their obesity. Obesity is often driven by forces outside of a person's control and is a result of complex biological, genetic, and environmental factors. Let's talk about mental health. The relationship between mental health and obesity is complex. Some mental health disorders and other associated medications can lead to weight gain, while excess weight increase the risk of certain disorders such as depression. Let's talk about it. How life events can influence weight gain and obesity. Our experiences from prenatal life to early adulthood, pregnancy, illness, and many more can influence weight gain. Let's talk about it, turning conversations into actions. When we talk, debate, and share our stories, we can change perspectives and transform health outcomes. Together, we can be a powerful voice calling for real action. What will you do? So there are supportive networks of people living with obesity all over the world, offering information, support, and guidance. So joining a community can help you to navigate your own obesity journey and advocate for a better treatment, prevention, and understanding. Some of the largest organizations are the Global Obesity Patient Alliance, European Coalition for People Living with Obesity, the US Obesity Action Coalition, and the Australian Weight Issues Network. And there are various other groups as well. Everybody's experience of obesity is different. So share your experience. There are many ways to address people's lived experience of obesity that must work for the individual. So what is your experience? Sharing your story can help change perspectives and inspire others who may feel alone and unrepresented. You can also hear from other people about their experience of obesity. Speak out against stigma. In many countries, people living with obesity are regularly blamed for it due to misconception and biases. Weight stigma reinforces incorrect assumptions that obesity is merely a person's individual responsibility. Have you experienced weight stigma? So facing stigma can take a toll on your mental health. So we need to, or we can help you navigate and understand difficult feelings and find inspiration in others. Let's talk about the stigma that people living with the obesity face so that we can inspire with our stories. Obesity is very common, affecting 1 in 6 adults and 1 in 11 children worldwide. In 2020, it is linked to a range of adverse physical and mental health outcomes. Unfortunately, many people living with obesity struggle to access health support and some face harmful stigma. So this must change. Healthcare workers can make an enormous difference. Learning and talking about weight with both parents and co-workers is one of the most important things you can do to improve understanding, treatment, and people's health. Almost 400 million children around the world will be living with obesity by 2035. That's 100% more than in 2020. Childhood obesity can profoundly affect physical, social, and emotional well-being, academic performance, and self-esteem. This often carries through to adolescence and into adulthood. Young people are being let down by systematic factors like aggressive food marketing and unequal access to healthcare that make it difficult to lead healthy lives. It's time they were involved in developing solutions for a better future. So let's talk about giving young people the power to act on obesity. As the next generation of adults, parents, workers, and decision makers, Youth must be part of the answer. So how can we engage young people in the conversation about obesity? Let's talk about food marketing as a contributing cause of obesity. There is a complex relationship between food systems and health, and the marketing of food products has known link to obesity. What type of food are marketed to young people near you? Let's talk about it, turning conversations into action. When we talk, debate, and share our stories, we can change perspectives and healthy outcomes. So together, young people can be powerful voice calling for real action. What will you do? Let's talk about obesity as a disease. Obesity is a disease caused by a variety of factors, including biology, mental health, genetic risk, environment, healthcare access, and access to ultra-processed food. It is about more than weight or willpower. Does your country recognize obesity as a disease? Let's talk about how we define obesity. Obesity is commonly measured by BMI. However, BMI does not indicate or take into account a host of health factors and can be seen as an inaccurate measurement. BMI stands for Body Mass Index. What other considerations would you like to discuss when defining obesity? Let's talk about the risk factor of living with obesity for other health conditions. People living with obesity may be greater risk of other chronic diseases such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers. Do you know how obesity intersects with other health issues? Let's talk about it. The importance of healthcare access in addressing obesity. Without access to person-centered healthcare from trained professionals, most people living with obesity will be unable to achieve their health goals alone. How do you think obesity healthcare needs to change? Let's talk about turning conversations into action. So together, we can be powerful voice calling for the real action. What you will do? Get involved. In 2022, the World Health Organization adopted a new set of recommendations on the prevention, management, and treatment of obesity throughout the life course. This was a major milestone for obesity policy and an opportunity to raise obesity up political agendas. But we cannot stop there. Policymakers need to act urgently on these recommendations to help prevent further increase in the rates of obesity and other non-communicable diseases. 1.9 billion people around the world will be living with obesity by 2035, and 2.9% of GDP, overweight and obesity is expected to cost in 2035, and nearly 400 million children are expected to have obesity by 2035. And adult obesity is expected to increase by over 60% between 2020 and 2035. So let's talk about obesity rising in every continent. Obesity is one on the rise globally, with 1.9 billion people predicted to be living with the disease by 2035. That's why action is more urgent than ever. Let's talk about how we can make addressing obesity a collective effort. We need to change the perception of obesity from me to we. The roots of the obesity are systematic, society-wide problems, and it requires a collective response. How can we work together to build a movement for beating obesity? Let's talk about bold policies. Policymakers must prioritize obesity and create natural action plans. What stage is your country at? and what should the decision makers do next? Let's talk about turning conversations into actions. Together, we can be a powerful voice calling for the reason. What will you do? So let's talk about obesity. Let's share our stories, because when we all talk, debate, and share, we can shift the norms and transform health outcomes for everybody. Everybody experience of obesity is different. Sharing your story adds to the conversation, deepens public understanding of obesity, and can support other people on their own obesity journeys. We want to celebrate the inspiring individuals, groups, and organizations who are speaking out and making a difference in their regions. Do you have a story to tell? We want to hear from you. Obesity is also an epidemic in the United States. This condition puts people together at high risk, serious diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. World Obesity Day, observed annually on March 4th, highlights the environmental and medical factors that contribute to the high obesity rates. This day also focuses on what we all can do to end the stigma. The US has the highest obesity rates among all the nations of the world because they consume a lot of junk food. And Americans are struggling since 2012. US obesity rates stood at 13% as opposed to the nearly 40% today in 1962. Ancient revelation, Indian surgeon Sushruta became the first to link obesity with diabetes and heart disease around 550 BC and earlier. So various public organizations, including the World Obesity Federation, offer the latest research on obesity. So get a better understanding of these challenges. Examine your views of people with obesity and learn to be more accepting. Call out abuse or discrimination when you see it. If your pants are feeling little tighter, hit the gym or adopt a daily exercise routine. Change your diet. Talk to your doctor about steps you can take, avoid being overweight. So there are various ways to prevent obesity. Eat 5 or 6 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Cut processed foods out of your diet and eat whole grain foods. Exercise for 30 minutes a day. Hit the treadmill. Keep track of your calories you burn as versus your calorie intake. Balance it out. So don't take too much food, too much meat and meat products. It can add up to your calories and build up your fat in your body and cause obesity and various other diseases. Obesity can cause serious illness. Women with obesity have a higher chance of getting breast cancer. And the research shows obesity causes nearly 3 lakh deaths in the US each year. So terrible consequences. Obesity rates are still rising. Nearly 40% of Americans over the age of 20 are considered to be obese. So healthcare costs total $300 million, and it is widely spread. It's stigmatizing. Lots of us still believe the obesity stems from laziness. Potential employers often discriminate against overweight people. Obese children face bullying. So let's talk about it. If you have a story, we are ready to listen. So with this, we shall end the commemoration of this topic. Then we'll World Obesity Day. And we'll be moving to our next commemoration, World Day of Fight Against Sexual Exploitation, which is celebrated every year on March 4th, that is today. And its primary goal is to unite the world to take a stand against all forms of sexual exploitation. Do you know that 1 in 10 children is sexually abused before their 18th birthday? Yes, sexual exploitation ruins the family and life of many people, including men and women and children across the world. That is why it is crucial to spread awareness and fight against this vice. Every effort counts, and the first step is to lift the lid on silence, which creates the atmosphere that allows sexual exploitation to thrive. Sex trafficking and human trafficking is a filthy and treacherous multi-billion-dollar business that has been going on in this world for many years. According to UNICEF, more than 3 million children worldwide are affected by prostitution, and nearly 1 million people are sexually exploited every year. This not only indicates young girls and women, but also young boys and men. Millions of people travel abroad for sex tourism to have sex with young children. This has increased child prostitutions across the world. It is estimated that every second of the day, an average of 8 people are trapped by international criminal networks for sexual exploitation, trafficking, and enslavement. So this is a huge, every second, 8 people. Imagine magnitude of the issue or the problem. So sexual exploitation is one of the worst treatments any human can receive, as it robs one of the basic human rights, the right to freedom, dignity, and even right to control their own body. This problem is ubiquitous, but prevalent in Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, Latin America, and Caribbean countries. The people who are trafficked from these countries are taken to developed countries for prostitution. The saddest part about this is that most sexually abused children keep the abuse a secret, mainly because they have no one to turn to help. Because they have no one to turn to help or for help. And even when they do tell, they are oftentimes not believed, and they end up at a greater risk of emotional, psychological, social, and physical problems. So they opt to remain silent, which is further perpetuates the problem and increase and supports the sexual violence and exploitation. So the first World Day of Fight Against Sexual Exploitation is observed as a global movement. In 2009, the UN General Assembly designates July 30 as World Day Against Trafficking in Persons in 2030. The world adopts the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and embraces goals set to put an end to the human trafficking. The governments tighten their grip across the world against sexual exploitation in 2020. So there are many ways in which you can fight sexual violence. You can start by respecting a person's right to say no to sexual activity. The 3 stages of sexual exploitation are recruitment, control, and exploitation. Unhealthy sexual behaviors, sharp changes in mood, physical signs of abuse, and being secretive are some of the signs of sexual exploitation. So be a responsible citizen and refuse to be a complicit by keeping quiet. Report any illegal activities that you witness in your locality. Use your social media handles and other platforms to spread awareness. Be sure to give accurate facts in order to stop the evil of sexual exploitation and trafficking. If you or someone you know was a victim of sexual exploitation in the past, you can share your experience. Be sure to advise people about how to stay safe. About 80% of the sexual abuse survivors report excessive drug and alcohol abuse. It ruins many lives. Young girls who are sexually abused are more likely to develop eating disorders. It can also lead to eating disorders. About 40% of victims are abused by a family member they know. The devil is with them. Unfortunately, many child victims never disclose their abuse and they continue to suffer. Silence only perpetuates the vice. 1 in 5 children is solicited sexually on the internet, and the internet has made it easier. The international criminal industry can only be curbed with the combined effort of the people across the world, which is much needed today. Although most recurring victims are perfectly capable of surviving on their own, they are subjected to a lot of cruelty and emotional trauma. We can be their voice and help them. There are ways that we can take a stance and be part of the solution. This includes participating in the special events held on the World Day of Fight Against Sexual Exploitation like this, and donating to NGOs that are supporting to the causes. Today is also commemorated as Brain Injury Awareness Day in US. Since the head injuries are so common across the US and the world, educating the public about significant concern is essential. So that is the purpose of Brain Injury Awareness Day. And brain injuries can lead to long-term changes for affected person and their loved ones, and present challenges to their everyday existence. Brain Injury Awareness Day is crucial and is part of wider campaign observed in the same month in Brain Injury Awareness Week and Brain Injury Awareness Month. So head injuries have existed since the origin of man. Popular culture stereotypically depicts cavemen as wild beings clubbing each other over the heads and forging the eyes. Remains reveal broken skull, broken Ancient Mesopotamians knew that head injury had serious side effects, such as seizures, paralysis, and loss of sight, hearing, or speech. Ancient Greek physicians understood that injuries to the center of thought impaired normal brain function to an extent. By the Middle Ages, physicians learned more about symptoms of brain injuries, and the term concussion to describe a milder type of head trauma was commonly used. An Italian physician named Jacob an Italian physician named Jacopo Berengario da Carpi systematically listed the symptoms of concussion, the first ever such description we can find. The next few decades were marked by experimentation and discovery as the world tried to understand the brain and its effects of an injury. For both world wars and subsequent carnage led to unprecedented head injuries. As a result, more studies were conducted in this field than in the previous years. World War I was partially responsible for developing a rehabilitation treatment to rescue, reduce the effects of brain injuries, something that caused high mortality. World War I was partially responsible for developing a rehabilitation treatment to reduce the effects of brain injuries, something that caused high mortality before the war. In 1900s, brain injuries were recognized as a public health problem. This was a time of innovation and advancement in the treatment and the management of the tissue. The standardized guidelines to treat brain injuries were established, multiple drugs came into being, and survival rates vastly improved. Today, the world is among This was a time of innovation and advancement in the treatment and management of this condition. Standardized guidelines to treat brain injuries were established, multiple drugs came into being, and survival rates vastly improved. Today, the world is more aware of brain injuries, their causes, and how best to prevent them. And there is room to improve, which is why US observes Brain Injuries Awareness Day. Brain injuries are classified into majorly three types: mild, moderate, and severe. Milder injuries, called concussions, only briefly change the mental status of the consciousness, while severe injuries can help you. At least 5% of the global population suffers brain injury each year as a result of mishaps, accidents, or other causes. While 3 lakh people in the official yearly number, according to general stats, most circumstances come from, or concussions come from football, lacrosse, and soccer, according to the Journal of Athletic Training. The part just behind the forehead, which controls the memory, attention, and problem-solving capabilities. While 3 lakh is the official yearly number according to general stats, most concussions come from football, lacrosse, and soccer according to the Journal of Athletic Training. The part just behind the forehead, which controls memory, attention, and problem-solving abilities, is the most affected by brain injuries, making that helmet very crucial. To reduce adverse effects. So experts, including the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, state people above 75 are more susceptible to head injuries sustained during slips and falls. Rehabilitation forms a crucial part of brain injury treatment and is unique to the individual and their hand. So increased awareness on this day helps us to understand the complexities of brain injuries, making us better equipped to handle situations when we are exposed to this chronic condition. Awareness programs should educate the public about the traumatizing brain injuries and help alleviate negative social attitudes associated. So awareness programs educate the public about traumatizing brain injuries and help elevate negative social attitudes associated with them, leading to better quality of life for those affected by this condition. Today is also National Salt Awareness Week in UK. Salt is arguably the most common and essential seasoning in the world. It is even referred to as the taste or flavor of life. But like the most things, too much or too little of the fine seasoning can make you sick. This is why that's why it is important to monitor your salt intake and adjust it accordingly. So with this, we shall conclude today's commemoration and see you all tomorrow at 2 o'clock for the pre-conference. If you have any queries, you can feel free to ask and interact. So those who have submitted your topics for presentations, you can complete the formalities so that we can update the topic list on the website and be prepared as the dates are coming closer. So everyone, we request everyone to quickly apply for the registration and be ready with your presentations. So thank you everyone for joining us. See you all tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Take care. Good night. We request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form before you leave. So see you all tomorrow at 2 p.m. Take care. Good night.